Hi, everybody. My name is Srijay Chenna. I'm a student studying bioengineering and business at the University of Pennsylvania. As you see here, I'm in Penn Engineering, and I also study, as you can see from the flag behind me, in the Wharton School of Business. So I think my experiences in research in high school actually led me to pursue this unique dual degree opportunity that has been extremely exciting for me to be a part of, um, where I'm now in my second year. So, a little bit of background about why I am talking to you, and that's one of my peers, is because I got into this. I got into my dual degree program, both my engineering side and my business side, through science fair. I won the fourth place grand prize in chemistry at the International Science and Engineering Fair in 2024. And they also have special awards, which are from sponsors, not from the fair. And I won the one that was presented by Non Trivial. As an overview of what my research was about, I was trying to build a more accessible mRNA therapeutic by modifying the synthetic vector that is used to deliver mRNA vaccines. It's a lot of complicated words, but to sort of like make it simplistic, if you have this medicine that's in the form of an mRNA, which we don't know what an mRNA is, I won't go too much into it, but it's a piece of genetic information that can encode function in your body. So it's basically a medicine. But the problem is when this mRNA goes into your bloodstream, there's these things called RNases, which are, if you know about proteins and enzymes, are a type of enzyme that breaks down RNA. So basically, if this medicine goes into my bloodstream without anything protecting it, it gets broken down and it can't do anything in my body. And so it needs something that's called a synthetic vector to protect it. And so the synthetic vector, you can think of it like a bubble. It basically is a bubble around the medicine, the mRNA, and it encapsulates it in this sphere, what we call a vesicle-like nanoparticle. And because it protects the medicine, now the medicine can find its way into your cells and it can help you. Its first notable use was in the COVID vaccine, and actually managed to work with the scientist who came up with this incredible technology, Professor Drew Weissman, and I was working in his lab when he won his Nobel Prize, which is incredible. Now, going more into what I did specifically for my project was actually sort of an offshoot from what I was working on in the lab already. And I came up with this idea of accessibility because it's something that I've always wanted to look at in terms of therapeutics. And so I'm just basically simplified it. It was a side project from what I was working on in the lab, as I mentioned. I basically got this job in the lab in the first place because I met the right person and I was excited about the right kind of science at the right time, which is hard to get. But if you're excited about science, I encourage you to talk to people in your field, and you'll find somebody, a professor or a peer, who's excited and will bring you into the fold, tell you about what they're working on, and you can get excited and start working on it too. And so the first person I got in contact with was Virgil Perchek. He was extremely notable in his field. He's a supermolecular chemist. He worked at the University of Pennsylvania, which I lived 40 minutes away from at the time, and so I got the opportunity to talk to him a few times. And I got excited about chemistry and the projects he was working on. And through Virgil, I met Professor Drew Weissman, who was working on mRNA therapeutics, and they were working on a joint project, which is specifically using dendritic nanoparticles, which is a chemistry concept, for mRNA therapeutic delivery, which is sort of a bioengineering concept. And so I worked for a summer on a project that was not my own, that was part of the lab. I was really fortunate to have the opportunity to do that. That project didn't pan out, and so I started working on my own project afterwards during the school year. I started dreaming up my own projects. My main work was a little more complex than my ISEF project. My ISEF project was, like I said, it was like a bit of a side quest that I did for 2 weeks. It was a very rudimentary total synthesis of the molecule that I had designed, and I was using some building blocks that I already had from my previous work and other projects, even though it was a little bit different than what I was working on. And I think my work was super scrappy, but like you need to be able to recognize like what is the best thing I can do for science fair. Science fair is really a function of two things, which is scientific development and then how can this impact the real world, which is a little different from just pure academia where you're just sometimes researching for the sake of fundamental development. But you, as a high schooler, are probably not going to make fundamental development. So try to think about how does your project translate to the real world, and how can I start exploring science in a fun way that makes sense in the context of my life and everybody else's life? I think that's definitely an interesting question to ask, and it's useful a question to ask if you want to be competitive in science fair. Then I think that my project ended up having a clear implication to the benefits of its benefits to society, and that what did well with the judges. It was also kind of simple, so the judges understood it really well. And so, like, this is another thing I recommend when you're presenting to judges: don't make it too complex, especially don't make it more complex than it is, because these people are know what they're talking about, and it might seem impressive to your peers if you're talking about what you're doing in these really complex terms. But if you're making stuff up, or not necessarily like blatantly making stuff up, but if you're exaggerating stuff, yeah, people will be able to see through that. The competition itself at ISEF was a great experience. I got to meet some incredible people. I'm actually currently working on a startup, and I met the co-founder of my startup there. She was presenting a different project there. Super cool. We got to talking during one of the main events. We were both coming from the same fair, and I remember George Onkopoulos, who's one of the founders of Regeneron's on stage talking to us, and we were like, okay, well, we're gonna make a company that's better than Regeneron. And I'm nothing against Regeneron. Regeneron's a great company, but we're gonna make a company. We're gonna sponsor this science fair in a few years, and big dreams. Maybe they'll come true, but that's where that started. And like, you meet so many great people, especially in your peers, but then you also get to meet people who are well established in their fields. I got to meet William E. Morner, who's a recipient of the Nobel Prize in Chemistry, which was amazing. Great experience, good time to build your network, especially if you're in high school. Obviously, be ready to present your project. Be prepared. You've been working on this, but that's the thing. You've been working on this, so you're ready to present. And I saw a lot of my peers who are really caught up in the stress of having to present their project, the culmination of all their hard work. They didn't enjoy the moment. I think that's a mistake. If you're really enjoying yourself and immersing yourself in the field around you, that's going to translate to passion, and then the passion comes through in your presentation. And if you're articulate and you know your presentation and your project well enough, you're going to do great anyway. So I wouldn't worry too much about that. I would worry about asking yourself the question, is this what I'm interested in? Because if the answer is yes, the rest of the stuff will follow. For sure. So yeah, I guess that's me moving on to the key advice I have for you. Find something you are passionate about. I would also say talk to the best people in your field. I got this piece of advice recently myself, and it was kind of crazy because I looked at this person who said, find the best people in your field. And I was like, well, you did it, but that doesn't mean I can do it. But then I thought back and I was like, I actually managed to find some of the best people in the fields that I've been working in. Drew Weissman is one of the most notable scientists of the past few years. I think that you can always look to the impressive scientists in your field when you immerse yourself in the field. And as you're fascinated with them, they are people who are looking for students as well. So reach out, build connections, see if they respond. You can honestly even email them every holiday season until they respond. But just, yeah, build connections, build relationships, and don't be afraid to talk to the best people. Again, that being said, don't just clout chase. Be genuine, follow up, and work hard. Find something that you're really willing to work hard at. This research was me working on weekends. I don't know where you guys are from, but I live in the U.S., and so I would get up at like 6:30 to be in school at 7:30 on weekdays, and then my weekends I didn't give myself an opportunity to sleep in. I would wake up early so that I could get to the train station and then be in the lab before everybody else. And so I was in the lab only after Virgil, actually, himself, who's my mentor. Virgil would get there before me, and then I would come in, and then maybe an hour later, all of the postdocs and other undergraduate students, I don't think there were any high school students in my lab at the time, would come in. So find something you're really willing to work at. Find something that makes you want to get up in the morning at like 6:30 and take the train for an hour to a different city so that you can work on it for the day. And because it is exhausting, and it's worth working on. It's worth showing up, having that conversation early in the morning, getting to work, and seeing results, and being frustrated sometimes because science it's not easy. It doesn't go your way a lot of the time. Yeah, I think that this pretty much sums up what I would give you as advice. I think I would also like to touch back on a point that I made there, that Virgil was my mentor, was there before me, and finding a great mentor always spurs you to do better in your field. Virgil has been like an amazing mentor to me, and I think that if I wasn't showing up, if I hadn't showed up at 7 a.m. and he wasn't there as well at 7 a.m., and we were the only two people in the entire building, that would have been um, that just wouldn't have been the same for me. Like, I wouldn't have worked so hard. I wouldn't have gotten so passionate about the field. I wouldn't have read all the papers he gave me, all the books he gave me. Um, and I certainly don't think I would be talking to you with so much passion and conviction. Maybe I would still be in this program, but I wouldn't be here sitting here talking to you with so much passion and conviction about the project that I did. And I think that finding a good mentor is sometimes very difficult, but definitely something that's worth putting that effort into. So thank you. This is one of the first times in my life I have the opportunity to give the information unto you, which I was given, or I wish I was given when I was your age. Hopefully this works out for you. I hope you enjoy this journey. Most importantly, have fun. I know this is easy for me to say because I ended up in a great program, but don't worry about where you're going to go to college. Don't worry about the future. Focus on building your interests. Focus on doing what you're passionate about. Everything will come with. So I want to thank you for taking the time to listen to my little spiel there, and hopefully you have found this helpful.